So this video has been a long time coming. I wanted to do a top 10 films of 2022 many months ago when everyone else was doing them, but I had a really bad cough and it just wouldn't allow me to speak for more than a minute at a time. Really annoying. But I finally whittled down a top 10 in order. There's a lot of movies. I think I saw around 71 2022 films. So I went hardcore last year, gorging on every movie. So I was able, let's start with our runner-ups. Batman and Superman Battle of the Super Sons. Avatar The Way of Water. Banshees of Inisherin. Decision to Leave. Moon Man. The Bad Guys. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Top Gun Maverick. Catwoman Hunted. The Outfit. Deep Water. The Batman. Yaksha Ruthless Operations, Puss in Boots The Last Wish, The Whale, Tar. Well, that's a pretty robust list of runner-ups, but we're going to start with number 10, which is Prey, the prequel to the Predator film series. Now, this one wasn't released in theater, it was released on Disney Hulu. I didn't know what to expect, but it was rated R, which I really liked, and I watched this movie only in the Comanche dub because I don't like anachronisms in period pieces. They really bother me. I don't even like it when people use the F-bomb in fantasy. It just feels weird. But like, Prey was a pretty solid movie in my opinion. I watched it twice actually. This one is about a young woman who wants to be a warrior, not a hunter-gatherer, but she's good with herbs and stuff. And when her clan is attacked by mountain lion, I want to say, she messes up. However, there's a more deadly predator out there, the Predator, and when it shows up and starts wrecking things, she is the only one that knows that there's something there. Everyone else scoffs at her. The movie's super violent, sometimes overly so. They introduce these French trapper characters that are basically just there to be cannon fodder, but I'm all for it, and I like the gore, I like the cool tech, I like the finale, even though there are some cringe-worthy moments, like she's got plot armor like hell. Prey is a worthy number 10 for me. Number 9 is The Northmen. This one didn't do very well at the box office. This one is the same director of The Lighthouse and The Witch. This one is about a young boy whose father is slain by his uncle, and he manages to escape, and he has one goal: return, kill his uncle, save his mother, settle the debt of revenge. So the beginning of the film is pretty brutal and cold. It's a little bit of a it's a harsh Viking fantasy, and I really like that. The beginning of the film has this great tracking shot of him joining these sort of barbarian raiders, because that's where he's been this whole time. So that's what he's been doing, and when he finally returns, there's a lot of great subversions in this film. It's very, very similar to The Green Knight, which came out the year before. That one had a lot of subversions of masculinity. This one does too, because you think it's going to be a straightforward, super violent revenge movie, and it definitely turns things on its head. Amazing performances too from everyone. Everyone's just going up to 11, The physicality of the main role, but also the emotional vulnerability, and Anya Taylor-Joy's great, and you got the father and the uncle and the mother. Everyone does a really good job. It feels almost like Shakespeare at times. So a worthy number 9 for The Northman. Number 8 is Project Wolf Hunting. This is a movie that took me by surprise. It's basically Con Air on a boat, but then they throw in an unstoppable killing machine that kills anything that moves. So I didn't know that was going to happen, to be honest. I thought it was going to be a werewolf movie because the movie's called Project Wolf Hunting. And that would have been probably cool too, but this one is definitely in the vein of The Witch, the Subversion, and Part 2, the other one, where you have like a simple crime thriller, throw in some superpowers and people getting wrecked in a rated R setting. This movie is very quality. It's made for cheap, and it looks great, and it blows the bar for violent action. It seems that foreign films are not afraid to go balls to the wall with their concepts, but this one has a bunch of cops that are basically escorting the criminals that they've captured overseas, and they're trying to go back to Korea, so they have to go on this secret cruise. And in the bottom of the ship, there's like this Jiangshi-like creature that just it's blind, but it senses heat and it just kills everything. The gory, bloody ride, wonderful, in the vein of the witch movies, but a worthy number 8. Number 7 is the Roundup. This is a sequel to The Outlaws from 2017, the return of Detective Ma. He is back in Vietnam, kind of doing the same thing in Project Wolf Hunting. He's basically going to Vietnam to do a simple prisoner transfer. While he's there, he's going to eat some pho and enjoy Vietnam. However, he discovers a kidnapping spree done by a vicious Korean criminal and decides to lay down the law, even though he's in Vietnam. He doesn't have backup. He just has minimal, authority, but maximum carnage in action. This movie's a throwback to those 80s and 90s, no-nonsense tough guy versus villains. But this movie's classed up by really great direction. There's a great apartment fights spread throughout, a big battle on a bus at the end. No nonsense, thrill ride, full of action, great camera work, sound. You got to watch these movies on the big screen. I pretty much forced a friend of mine to go to the theater on his own and watch it on the big screen, but the Roundup is a worthy number 7. We're following a trend here because number 6 is The Killer, A Girl Deserves to Die, in the Korean film. This one can be described as basically a John Wick inspired movie, but more like Man on Fire meets John Wick. This one is about a retired hitman who got married, and he doesn't have any kids, but she wants to go on a girls trip with a friend of hers, and he's got to babysit the teenage daughter, which shouldn't be too hard, but she gets into trouble immediately, of course, and he has to basically find a way to get her out of it. And then when they retaliate and kidnap her again, he realizes there's a lot more to the situation than just her getting into catfished and stuff like that, and it turns into a find the girl, save her, kill anyone that gets in your way. A lot of despicable villains. There's like this sort of a bodyguard of sorts that is able to match him, fight for fight. So it's not just one guy running around killing a whole bunch of people. It is, but there's also some sub bosses, which I really liked. I love having mid or sub bosses. More resistance from the villains always makes for a more entertaining film because it ups the stakes a lot. So The Killer, A Girl Deserves to Die is a worthy number 6. Number 5 is Everything Everywhere All at Once. I watched this movie before all the Oscar hype. The trailer intrigued me. It looked weird, especially because when they're doing the montage of all the different worlds, you get a cartoon one. I'm just like, what? So this movie is basically the artistic, more elevated version of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which also came out last year. So this one is about a daughter and a mother relationship gone fray, but it's hidden in there. And the movie almost pulls you with a nice bait and switch, because if you watch the trailer, you think you're getting like a Matrix-like film where it's like, oh, Evelyn, you're the prime one that can defeat the great evil, and there's going to be some martial arts stuff and Asian people, and you're like, oh, okay, but deep down it's actually like a more emotional story, and it's like a nice gut punch. And considering that the director's previous film was about a farting corpse that saves a man from a desert island, the movie shouldn't work on any level, but it's bizarre and heartrending and equally balanced. It's worthy of all of its Oscar wins, to be honest. I'm glad it took everything, and Everything Everywhere All at Once is a worthy number 5. Number 4 is Triangle of Sadness, this Ruben Östlund film. I think I've only seen the Avalanche movie he did, Force Majeure, before this one. And so I didn't know anything about this film. I literally knew nothing. My friend's like, let's go. I'm like, sure. Wonderful satire. Very similar to other satire films that have been out about the rich. This one is about a influencer couple that wins a free trip on a cruise, like a yacht cruise, I guess, yeah. And they're, enjoying the fun in the sun. However, the captain is a alcoholic, and he ends up making some bad decisions, which causes a party to happen during a storm. And I just want to let people go into it more blind than because the movie turns its head in the second half and it doesn't let go. It is a scathing satire of the rich and classism, but it's also a weird, interesting film of power dynamics, and it just keeps going and it doesn't let up, and it's just an amazing, twisted little weird film with some nice surprising performances from unknowns. But it's definitely one of the smaller wins of last year, and Triangle of Sadness is a worthy number 4. Number 3 is Emily the Criminal. This one is another film that took me by surprise because I knew nothing about it. I just knew it had a really strong score on Rotten Tomatoes. It's a debut film from the director and Aubrey Plaza in a serious role. So she plays like this Grubhub style delivery lady who's just trying to make a buck, but she's got to, pay rent and stuff. And when she takes a shift from her coworker, he's grateful enough to give her a phone number, and she's able to sort of become a criminal smurf, where she takes a stolen credit card, walks into a store, buys something, brings it to a van. They'll give her some cash, and then they obviously resell the stolen television for a bigger profit. And it trickles down to her. And, she likes doing this, but the risks become bigger. She ends up romantically involved with one of the ringleaders of this credit card scam group and becomes a sort of, not a mastermind, but she sort of becomes her own woman, and she starts doing it on her own, which gets her in a lot of trouble until we get a final finale, which, culminates into All or Nothing. So Emily the Criminal is a nice surprise. It's one of those lesser known gritty sort of criminal crime thriller films, and it's a worthy number 3. Number 2 is Pearl. This is a prequel film of X, same director and star, but people don't really, it's not common knowledge, but Mia Goth also played the old version of Pearl in X. So this one is a prequel film about basically Pearl growing up. And this movie, I didn't know what to expect. I knew it was a slasher like X, but emotional tour de force, really. The movie's like just basically like a huge Technicolor homage to like Judy Garland and those, musical films of the 30s and 40s, and I wasn't expecting that, but it was made really well. And the number one thing is that even though Mia Goth obviously is a star, she's backed up by a wonderful cast that really, they don't overshadow her, but they don't slack. And the movie's just twisted and weird and emotional and really well acted, and a little bit violent too, but that ending monologue pretty much, sealed the deal for me for this movie. I really enjoyed it. Sitting in the theater, I was just transfixed by that scene. It just, like, the screen got bigger, and I got sucked in. It was weird. It was a great movie. It's a mix of a slasher and a coming of age and drama. It just shouldn't have worked, but it did, and Pearl's a worthy number 2. And my number 1 film of 2022 is The Menu. This movie's done by the same guy who did Succession, a television show that I have not watched yet. But this is another scathing satire movie. I believe the 3 of them were The Menu, Triangle of Sadness, and there was one more in there too. Satirizing the rich and famous is a common thread now. And The Menu is top notch for me, especially because on its own, it is a very entertaining movie, but I also worked as a dishwasher in a restaurant, so I know all about the restaurant culture, like the yes chef and the back of house, the front of house, the hostess, all the different roles. I have a deeper knowledge of all that because I've worked in a restaurant, but the movie works even if you've never, worked in a restaurant at all. But the movie has really strong character work from everyone, every little detail subtly thrown in there, and definitely some aspects of the film you don't really catch the first time around, but this one has masterful acting as well. I'm glad it did okay at the box office. It's one of those movies that just came out and like slowly trickled more money over time, but it's such a rich film because of the way the dialogue just gets more and more sinister. You're watching the film, you're not really sure what's going on. I honestly thought they were going to go with a cannibal aspect and be like, oh, I fed you a homeless man or something. But no, the movie definitely doesn't go in a cheap way that you would see coming. And every time, they introduce a new element, it just throws you, for a loop. And the movie doesn't piddle away its concept. It goes for broke. It doesn't try to backpedal or try to, play with kids' gloves. There's a lot of subtext to the character work. I really enjoyed the whole cast, really, and I was transfixed from beginning to end, and that's why The Menu is my favorite film of 2022.